Samantha Harvey's Orbital is a quiet, mesmerizing novel that takes place over the course of a single day aboard the International Space Station, where 6 astronauts circle the Earth again and again, watching continents slide past beneath them. On the surface, very little happens in the conventional sense. There is no major disaster, no sudden twist, no plot built around suspense. Instead, the novel turns one ordinary day in orbit into a profound meditation on time, grief, beauty, fragility, and what it means to belong to Earth while being separated from it. The crew consists of 6 astronauts and cosmonauts from different nations: Roman, Anton, Chi, Pietro, Sean, and Nell. Each has a different temperament, history, and relationship to the planet below, yet the station binds them into a strange kind of temporary family. They live in extreme closeness while also remaining deeply alone in their own minds. Harvey uses this shared isolation to explore how people can be united by circumstance and purpose, even when their interior lives remain private and unreachable. One of the novel's most important ideas is that space changes not just what people see, but how they think. From orbit, Earth is always present, always luminous, always turning, yet the astronauts cannot touch it. That distance transforms the planet into something at once intimate and abstract. It is home, but it is also image, pattern, atmosphere, color, weather, and light. Harvey keeps returning to this paradox. The astronauts are physically farther from Earth than most humans ever will be, yet mentally and emotionally they may be closer to its reality than those living on its surface. Roman, the commander, is especially aware of time's instability in orbit. On Earth, days have a rhythm: morning, afternoon, evening, night. But aboard the station, that rhythm breaks down. The astronauts witness multiple sunrises and sunsets in a single day, and the usual markers of human life begin to feel artificial. Roman's effort to keep track of the day becomes symbolic of a larger human need to count, organize, and structure existence in the face of vastness. In a realm where time feels shattered, routine becomes a way of preserving the self. That routine shapes the day. The crew exercise, eat, perform scientific tasks, maintain equipment, clean, communicate, observe, and rest. Harvey gives real attention to these details because the ordinary work of living does not disappear in the presence of wonder. In fact, Orbital insists that the mundane and the sublime exist together. The astronauts may be looking down on the Himalayas or the Pacific, but they still have to wipe surfaces, monitor systems, and keep their bodies functioning in zero gravity. The sacred and the practical coexist in every hour of the book. Chi carries one of the novel's deepest emotional sorrows. While she is aboard the station, her mother has died back on Earth. This loss gives the novel a painful emotional center, because Chi's grief is experienced in suspension. She cannot return home. She cannot attend rituals of mourning in the ordinary human way. She cannot be physically present at the place where death has occurred. Her grief becomes weightless, but not lighter. Harvey uses Chi to show that distance can strip away ceremony and leave behind only the raw interior truth of loss. That grief also sharpens one of the novel's most devastating contrasts. From space, the astronauts can see whole oceans, entire mountain systems, and weather moving across half a continent, yet none of that scale can restore one missed goodbye. The vastness of Earth does not diminish personal sorrow. Instead, it makes the singularity of one human life feel even more acute. Chi's grief reminds the reader that no cosmic perspective, however grand, cancels the intimate reality of love and loss. Anton, meanwhile, reflects on his failing marriage. His thoughts bring another form of sadness into the novel: not death, but the erosion of connection. Orbit gives him distance from the relationship, but not clarity in any simple sense. He circles the subject the way the station circles Earth, revisiting old feelings, regrets, tenderness, and resignation. Harvey suggests that many of the most important emotional truths in life are not linear. They do not move neatly from problem to solution. They recur. They return. They remain unresolved, like objects caught in orbit. Nell also embodies divided belonging. She has a husband and a life on a farm in Ireland, yet much of her life has been spent elsewhere, in training and work and movement. Through her, Harvey explores the cost of vocation. What does it mean to dedicate yourself to something extraordinary if that dedication keeps you at a distance from ordinary life? Nell's presence in the novel reflects the tension between achievement and home, between ambition and rootedness. The station may represent human accomplishment, but it also throws into relief all that has been left behind in order to reach it. Sean introduces the language of faith into the novel. He is open to the idea of design, order, and spiritual meaning in the universe, and this matters because Orbital is constantly negotiating the boundary between scientific observation and metaphysical awe. Harvey never turns the novel into a theological argument, but Sean's way of seeing adds one more human response to the grandeur around them. For some, wonder becomes data. For others, it becomes reverence. The novel makes room for both. Pietro is perhaps the figure most completely at ease with the identity of astronaut. He seems made for the role, almost fused with it. Yet Harvey does not let that professional fluency flatten him into a stereotype. Through Pietro, the novel explores what it means for a creature evolved for gravity, for weather, for ground, to become skillful in a place that is fundamentally inhospitable to human life. The astronauts are triumphs of discipline and training, but they are still fragile bodies living in a machine that protects them from immediate death. The station itself is one of the novel's most important symbols. It is more than a spacecraft. It becomes, in Harvey's prose, something like a monastery, a drifting cloister, a sealed lung, a chapel of observation. Inside it, the crew follow rituals, maintain silence when needed, keep to routines, and devote themselves to looking outward. The effect is almost religious, even though the setting is scientific. Orbit becomes a form of retreat, a place cut off from the world in order to contemplate it more deeply. Earth, viewed from above, becomes both more beautiful and more vulnerable. Harvey lingers on deserts, storms, rivers, coastlines, city lights, and cloud systems, allowing the planet to appear almost painterly. But this beauty is never merely decorative. The more lovely Earth appears, the more breakable it feels. From orbit, borders vanish, and what remains is a single living sphere wrapped in thin atmosphere. That image carries enormous symbolic force. The astronauts do not see nations first. They see one planet, one home, exposed in darkness. Time keeps unraveling throughout the novel. 16 sunrises in one day destroy the intuitive meaning of day and night. Morning is no longer a stable concept. Evening loses its finality. Harvey uses this altered time sense to show how deeply human meaning depends on rhythm. On Earth, we build memory and identity through recurring patterns: sleep, waking, work, weather, seasons. In orbit, those anchors loosen. The astronauts are still human, but they are briefly living outside the tempo in which humanity evolved. Harvey also never lets the reader forget the body. In zero gravity, the body becomes strange. Muscles weaken unless deliberately exercised. Sleep is unnatural. Fluids shift. Movement changes. Even rest must be managed. This matters because Orbital is not just a novel of pure thought or pure beauty. It is about embodiment under unusual conditions. The astronauts may seem elevated, but their flesh remains vulnerable, needy, and animal. The novel's grandeur is always tethered to the fact that these are mortal bodies floating inside a carefully maintained shell. One of the most striking episodes involves a spacewalk, where Nell and Pietro work outside the station. This scene distills the novel's central tensions: technical labor and transcendence, danger and beauty, concentration and awe. Outside the station, the human body is reduced to equipment, discipline, and survival, and yet the view is almost unbearable in its beauty. Harvey turns a maintenance task into something mythic. It feels like stepping outside not only the station, but the ordinary boundaries of human life. Running through the novel is the image of a typhoon building over the Western Pacific. This storm becomes the closest thing the book has to an external dramatic thread. From orbit, it is magnificent, a giant spiral of weather, beautiful in form, nearly abstract. But the astronauts know that on Earth it is not abstraction at all. It is danger, destruction, fear, and consequence. Harvey uses the storm to expose one of the novel's deepest moral tensions. Beauty and catastrophe can occupy the same image, depending on where you are standing. The typhoon also connects the book to environmental consciousness. Orbital is not a lecture about climate change, but it is haunted by awareness of planetary vulnerability. The astronauts see the Earth as system, pattern, and atmosphere, and that perspective makes human damage harder to ignore. Distance reveals wholeness. What may feel local on Earth begins to feel global from above. The novel quietly suggests that one of the tragedies of modern life is that people often struggle to feel the unity of the world they are actively altering. Another major strength of the book is the way it handles human connection. The 6 astronauts are close, but Harvey resists sentimentalizing them into a neat found family. Their bond is more restrained, more realistic, and in some ways more moving because of that. They depend on one another completely. They share air, systems, labor, schedules, and danger. Yet they do not fully confess themselves to one another. Each retains an inner solitude. The novel understands that companionship does not erase existential isolation. That restraint gives Orbital its unusual emotional tone. The book is not cold, but it is calm. Its feeling is deep without becoming melodramatic. Harvey lets the astronauts' thoughts drift in and out of one another's presence like weather patterns crossing the same globe. Their relationships are built on care, professionalism, kindness, and proximity rather than grand declarations. The result is a portrait of intimacy shaped by silence and mutual endurance rather than by overt conflict. The prose itself mirrors Orbit. Harvey writes in recurring images and patterns, letting phrases and perceptions return with slight variation. The way each pass around the planet reveals the same Earth differently. This stylistic repetition is not accidental. It enacts the novel's structure. The reader is not meant to race toward a conclusion, but to inhabit circulation, recurrence, and altered attention. In that sense, Orbital is not just about orbit, it is written orbitally. The title is therefore perfectly chosen. Everything in the book moves in circles. The station circles Earth. Thoughts circle memory. Grief circles the dead. Love circles absence. Human attention circles meaning without ever fully capturing it. Harvey suggests that much of life is not forward momentum toward clear answers, but repeated return. We revisit the same losses, the same loyalties, the same fears, the same wonder, and each time we see them from a slightly changed angle. By the later parts of the novel, the effect of all this repetition becomes cumulative and profound. What began as a day's routine turns into a meditation on what Earth really is. Not territory, not backdrop, not possession, but a singular, shared, fragile world. The astronauts, precisely because they are outside it, begin to illuminate its nearness. The farther away they are, the more deeply they seem to feel its pull. Orbit does not free them from Earth. It clarifies their dependence on it. The novel does not end with a conventional climax because its real climax is a shift in perception. What remains after reading Orbital is not the memory of plot mechanics, but an enlarged awareness of fragility. Human relationships are fragile. Bodies are fragile. Weather systems are fragile and violent at once. Time is fragile. Civilization is fragile. Even the sense of self can feel provisional when removed from gravity, routine, and home. The book's vision is humbling. Space does not make humanity larger. It makes humanity more contingent. In the end, Orbital is a novel about seeing Earth clearly enough that it becomes strange again, and precious again. Its symbolism gathers around cycles, storms, suspended grief, ritual, light, machinery, and the thinness of the atmosphere that protects all life below. Harvey's deepest message is that the great revelation of space travel may not be escape, conquest, or mastery, but renewed tenderness toward home. Orbital asks what happens when humanity leaves the world just far enough to finally understand how miraculous, breakable, and shared that world really is. That's all for now. Consider giving this video a like or subscribing if you learned something new. Happy learning. We hope to see you in the next video.